Rachel Bennett stood in the sleek, modern loft overlooking Puget Sound, the Seattle skyline shimmering through floor-to-ceiling windows. The space was alive with anticipation. String lights draped from exposed beams, white orchids spilling from minimalist vases, and the hum of a jazz quartet warming the air. Tomorrow she would marry Mark Sullivan, her co-founder and the man who'd stood by her through sleepless nights coding their startups app. Their company, Cloudcrest, was set to launch its revolutionary mental health platform the same day, a seamless blend of therapy and AI. Rachel felt like she was floating in a dream, one she'd coded herself, a perfect wedding, a game-changing launch, and a future with the man she loved. At 29, Rachel had poured everything into Cloudcrest. She'd grown up in Tacoma, a scrappy kid with a knack for coding, teaching herself Python on a secondhand laptop. College at the University of Washington introduced her to Mark, a charismatic business major with a vision for tech that matched her own. Together, they'd built Cloudcrest from a dorm room idea to a venture-backed startup, securing $5 million from Seattle's top investors. The app promised to democratize mental health support, using AI to match users with therapists and provide real-time coping tools. It was their baby, their legacy. By her side through it all was Tara Nguyen, her best friend since their UW days. Tara, with her sharp wit and accounting genius, had joined Cloudcrest as CFO, balancing their budget and charming investors with her quick smile. She was Rachel's rock, the one who'd stayed up late debugging code, brought coffee during all-nighters, and listened to Rachel's dreams of a life with Mark. When Rachel chose Tara as her maid of honor, it felt like the only choice. "You're my family," Rachel had told her, tears in her eyes as they hugged in the loft weeks ago, planning the wedding. Now, the night before the big day, Rachel adjusted her rehearsal. Dinner dress, a sleek emerald number that hugged her frame and surveyed the room. Mark was across the loft, laughing with investors, his blonde hair catching the light. Tara was beside him, her black hair swept into a chic updo, clinking glasses with a venture capitalist. The air smelled of cedar and sea salt, a quintessentially Seattle evening. Rachel's heart swelled. This was it, the culmination of years of work and love. As the dinner wound down, guests spilled onto the rooftop deck, the Space Needle glowing in the distance. Rachel sipped her wine, watching Mark and Tara huddle by the bar, their heads bent close. They were probably finalizing launch details, she thought. The app's debut was synced with the wedding for maximum PR buzz, a bold move, but Mark had insisted it would put Cloudcrest on the map. Rachel trusted him. She trusted Tara. They were her team, her world. "Rachel," Tara called, waving her over. "Come toast with us." Her smile was bright, but her eyes darted to Mark for a split second. Rachel brushed it off as nerves. Tomorrow was huge for all of them. "To Cloudcrest and forever," Mark said, raising his glass. His blue eyes locked on Rachel's, and she felt a rush of warmth. Tara echoed the toast, her voice a little too sharp, but Rachel didn't dwell on it. She was too happy, too caught up in the moment. As the night ended, Rachel slipped into the loft's quiet corner to check her phone. A notification pinged. An email from their lead developer, flagged urgent. Frowning, she opened it. Rachel found a weird code commit in the app's backend. Looks like a data export function, but it's locked. "You didn't authorize this, right?" Her stomach twisted. A locked commit? She hadn't touched the backend in weeks, and Mark handled ops. She'd ask him tomorrow. Tonight was for celebration. She went to bed in the loft's guest suite, Mark staying in a nearby hotel per tradition. As she drifted off, she pictured walking down the aisle, the app launching to applause, and her future unfolding like a perfect algorithm. She didn't know that by morning her world would crash like a server under attack. Chapter 2. The Glitch. The morning of the wedding dawned gray, Seattle's signature drizzle misting the windows. Rachel woke with a flutter of nerves and excitement. The loft was a flurry of activity. Caterers arranging farm-to-table dishes, florists weaving greenery into arches, and the jazz band tuning up. Tara burst in with a tray of coffee from a nearby roastery, her smile wide but strained. "Big day, Rach," Tara said, handing her a latte. "You ready to be Mrs. Sullivan and tech royalty?" Rachel laughed, sipping the coffee. "I'm ready to not trip in my dress and for the app to not crash." She wore a white silk robe, her auburn hair loose around her shoulders. The dress, a flowing minimalist gown with lace sleeves, hung on a rack, waiting to transform her into a bride. Tara fussed with Rachel's veil, her fingers lingering. "You're gonna kill it today. Both of you." Her voice was soft, but there was an edge Rachel couldn't place. She chalked it up to Tara's perfectionism. As CFO, Tara was always stressed about details. By noon, Rachel was dressed, her makeup subtle but glowing, her hair swept into a loose chignon. Her parents, beaming from Tacoma, adjusted her train, and her dad whispered, "You're my star, kid." The ceremony was set for the rooftop, with the reception in the loft. The app launch would happen mid-reception, a live demo projected on a massive screen. Rachel's heart raced. This was her moment. As guests arrived, Rachel peeked from the suite's window. Mark stood by the altar, sharp in his navy suit, chatting with his groomsmen. Tara was nearby, in a burgundy maid of honor dress, directing ushers. Everything was perfect, but that email from the developer nagged at her. She needed to clear her head before the ceremony. Slipping into the loft's office to check her laptop, Rachel pulled up the app's codebase. The locked commit was still there, buried in the back end. She tried to access it, but it required Mark's admin key. Odd. He'd never locked code before. Her phone buzzed, a text from Tara. "Where are you?" "Almost time," Rachel typed a quick reply, then heard voices through the office's thin wall, coming from the adjacent storage room. "We move the data tonight. After the demo," Mark's voice said, low and urgent. "Once the app launches, no one will notice." "Are you sure?" Tara's voice, sharp and nervous. "Rachel's smart. She'll figure it out." "She's distracted," Mark replied. "Wedding launch, all of it. By the time she checks, we'll have sold the user data and be out." Rachel froze, her breath catching. Sold user data? Cloudcrest's core was its privacy promise. No data sharing, ever. It was her ethical line. The reason she'd fought investors who wanted to monetize user info. Her hands shook as she leaned closer to the wall. "It's not just the money," Tara said, her voice softer now. "What about us, Mark? After this, we're free, right?" A pause. Then Mark's voice, low and intimate. "Yeah, babe. You and me. No more hiding." Rachel's heart stopped. "Babe, hiding?" She pressed her ear to the wall, her veil catching on her shoulder. A rustle, a muffled laugh, then the unmistakable sound of a kiss. Her stomach lurched. She wanted to scream, to barge in, but her body wouldn't move. Her fiancé and her best friend, on her wedding day. She stumbled back, her gown rustling, and grabbed her phone. She needed proof. Quietly, she opened the office door and crept to the storage room's entrance. The door was ajar, and through the crack, she saw them. Mark's hands on Tara's waist, her arms around his neck, their lips locked. Rachel's vision blurred with tears, but she held her phone steady, snapping a silent photo. The jazz band started outside, signaling the ceremony's start. Rachel backed away, her mind racing. She couldn't walk down that aisle. She couldn't launch an app tainted by betrayal. But she also couldn't let them win. She needed a plan. Chapter 3, The Crash. Rachel returned to the suite, her hands trembling as she wiped her eyes. Her parents were waiting, her dad in a suit, her mom adjusting her necklace. "Ready, honey?" her mom asked, smiling. Rachel's throat tightened. She wanted to tell them, to collapse into their arms, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she nodded, forcing a smile. "Just need a minute." Alone, she sat on the bed, the photo of Mark and Tara burning in her phone. She opened her laptop again, digging into the locked commit. It was a data export script, set to siphon user profiles to an offshore server post-launch. The revenue, millions potentially, would go to an account in Tara's name. They'd planned this for months, using Rachel's trust to build their exit strategy. Her phone buzzed again. "Tara, Rach, where are you? Guests are seated." Rachel's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could confront them now, ruin the wedding, expose them to everyone. But that would destroy Cloudcrest's launch, her reputation, and the investors' trust. She needed to be smarter. She typed a quick email to the developer, lock the back end, disable all admin access except mine. Do it now. Then she texted her lead engineer, instructing him to delay the launch demo, citing technical issues. She'd deal with the fallout later. Taking a deep breath, Rachel stood, smoothing her gown. She wouldn't let them see her break. She'd walk out there, not as a bride, but as a woman taking back her power. The rooftop was a vision, white chairs lined with greenery, Puget Sound sparkling under a rare break in the clouds. Guests smiled, unaware of the storm inside Rachel. Mark stood at the altar, his grin faltering when he saw her expression. Tara by the aisle looked pale, sensing something was off. Rachel's dad took her arm, whispering, "You okay, kid?" She squeezed his hand, unable to speak. As the quartet played, she walked down the aisle. Her eyes locked on Mark's. His smile wavered, and she saw the guilt flicker in his gaze. At the altar, the officiant began, but Rachel raised a hand. "Wait," the crowd murmured. Mark's brow furrowed. Tara shifted, her eyes darting to the exit. "I need to say something," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. She turned to the guests, her parents, Mark's family, investors, friends. This wedding was supposed to be a celebration of love and trust. "But I've just learned that trust has been broken." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mark stepped forward, his voice low. "Rachel, what are you—" "Don't," she cut him off, pulling out her phone. She held up the photo of him and Tara, the screen bright for all to see. "You and Tara have been planning to sell Cloudcrest's user data behind my back. And you've been together betraying me for months." The crowd erupted in whispers. Tara's face drained of color, her heels clicking as she backed away. Mark stammered, "Rachel, it's not what you think." "I heard you," she said, her voice like steel. "I heard every word in that storage room. You're done lying." Her parents stood, her mom's hand over her mouth. Investors exchanged glances, phones already out, likely texting their teams. Rachel turned to the guests. "There will be no wedding today, and the app launch is postponed. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but I won't build a future on lies." She walked off the rooftop, her gown trailing, ignoring Mark's calls and Tara's choked sob. Her dad caught up, wrapping an arm around her. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. She nodded, tears finally falling, but she kept walking. Chapter 4. The Reboot. Rachel didn't go home to the apartment she shared with Mark. Instead, she drove to a small Airbnb in Capitol Hill, a quirky studio with a view of rain-slicked streets. She changed out of her gown, pulling on jeans and a hoodie, and sat by the window, watching Seattle's drizzle. Her phone buzzed with messages, her parents, concerned friends, angry investors, but she silenced it. She needed space to think. By evening, she'd contacted her lawyer, drafting a plan to dissolve her partnership. With Mark and Tara, she emailed the Cloudcrest team, assuring them the app wasn't dead, just delayed. She'd rebuild it herself, clean, without their taint. But first, she needed to breathe. The next morning, Rachel wandered into a nearby coffee shop, the Brew Nook, a cozy spot with mismatched chairs and the smell of roasted beans. She ordered a flat white and opened her laptop, staring at the Cloudcrest codebase. The data export script was gone. Her developer had locked it out. But the app was still hers, and she'd fight for it. "Rough day?" a voice asked. Rachel looked up to see a man in his early 30s, with dark hair and kind hazel eyes wiping down the counter. His name tag read Ethan. She laughed bitterly. "Rough life." She didn't mean to spill. But the words came out. Her wedding, the betrayal, the app. Ethan listened, leaning on the counter, his expression calm but engaged. "Sounds like you're stronger than they are," he said when she finished. Not many people could walk away from that and still be coding the next day. Rachel smiled faintly, the first real smile in 24 hours. "I don't feel strong." "You will," he said, sliding a fresh coffee her way. On the house, over the next weeks, Rachel became a regular at the Brew Nook. She worked there daily, rewriting Cloudcrest's code, purging Mark and Tara's contributions. Ethan was always there, offering coffee and quiet encouragement. He wasn't pushy, just present, a former coder turned barista. He'd left tech after burning out at a startup. His stories of crunch time and corporate greed made Rachel feel seen. Meanwhile, Mark and Tara's lives unraveled. Investors pulled funding after Rachel shared evidence of their data scheme. Mark tried to spin it, claiming it was a misunderstanding. But the tech blogs ate it up. Cloudcrest co-founders caught in scandal. Tara disappeared from Seattle's social scene, her LinkedIn dormant. Rachel didn't care. She was done with revenge. By month 3, Rachel had a new prototype. She pitched it to a smaller, ethical investor group, emphasizing privacy and user trust. They funded her $2 million to rebuild. She hired a lean team, working out of the brew nook when the studio felt too small. Ethan became her sounding board, sketching ideas on napkins during slow shifts. One day, he showed her a side project, a mood-tracking app he'd built for fun. It was simple but brilliant, and Rachel saw its potential. "Want to join me?" she asked, half-joking. "I could use a coder with heart." Ethan grinned. "Only if you let me keep the coffee free." Chapter 5. The New Code. 6 months later, Rachel launched Crest 2.0, a stripped-down but honest version of her app. It wasn't flashy, but it worked, matching users with therapists, offering AI-driven mindfulness tools, and prioritizing privacy. The launch event was small, held at the Brew Nook, with Ethan's mood tracker integrated as a feature. Tech blogs called it a comeback. Seattle founder rises from betrayal with ethical app. Rachel and Ethan grew closer, their friendship evolving into something deeper. He didn't push, didn't promise her the world, just showed up, coding beside her, sharing quiet walks along Pike Place Market. One rainy evening, as they ducked under an awning, he kissed her. It wasn't fireworks, but peace, like Seattle's drizzle settling into her bones. A year after the failed wedding, Rachel stood in her new office, a modest space in Fremont with a view of the canal. Crest 2.0 was gaining users, and her team was growing. Ethan was officially her co-founder, his coffee shop now a side hustle. They weren't married, weren't even engaged, but they were partners in work, in life. One day, Mark emailed her, a long message about his regrets. His new job in San Francisco, how he'd learned his lesson. Rachel read it, then deleted it. He didn't get to rewrite her story. Tara, she heard, was working odd jobs, her reputation in tatters. Rachel felt no joy in their downfall, only relief that they were gone. Chapter 6. The Final Commit. 3 years later, Rachel stood on the deck of a ferry crossing Puget Sound, Ethan beside her. Crest 2.0 had become Crest Wellness, a leader in ethical tech, with partnerships across the U.S. Rachel's name was synonymous with resilience. Her TED Talk on trust in tech viral. She didn't need the spotlight, though. She needed the work, the purpose. Ethan took her hand, the wind ruffling his hair. "Proud of you," he said simply. She smiled, leaning into him. "Proud of us." Rachel's wedding dress was long gone, donated to a charity. The pain of that night lingered, a scar she didn't hide. It had taught her to trust herself, to choose better. Ethan wasn't her savior. He was her equal, her home. As the ferry docked, Seattle's skyline glowed through the mist. And Rachel knew she'd built something stronger than code. A life that was hers. Whole and true, epilogue. Rachel sat at the Brew Nook, now co-owned with Ethan, typing on her laptop. A customer asked about her story, having seen her TED Talk. She smiled, closing her laptop. "It's not about the fall," she said. "It's about what you build after." She looked at Ethan, pulling espresso shots, and felt peace. The rain tapped the windows, a Seattle lullaby. Her story wasn't a fairy tale, but it was hers, scars, code, and all.